everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Taking a look at some of the really significant Saturn-Mars stuff that's setting up over this next week. This might be a little bit of a refresher. I think you guys might have seen me kind of touch on this during my Mars retrograde video, talking about the trine that Mars will be making to Saturn 2 times over. It'll be an air trine. So this actual transit is not technically going to be setting up until closer to the 27th of the month. We've got a couple of days here, but you guys can really benefit from being prepared from the trine. I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to kind of work with it, and also take a look at the last time that we had this trining just a couple of weeks ago. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. If you like my content, if you want to be on the up and up when we have new videos coming out, please click the button below and make sure that you're subscribed, and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from and how you're feeling with these energies. All right, so Mars in Gemini, trine Saturn in Aquarius for the second time, flexing your communication muscles. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting with this transit. So like I said, it's setting up closer to November 27th, but if you're like me and you want to be prepared and you want to make the most of these positive transits, then let's go ahead and let's do that, so that way you guys know what's coming. You'll be feeling this from the November 27th through the 30th. So there'll be like a 3-day working period, but you can actually start working with this energy sooner. I don't really think it's going to be felt as strongly until the 27th, partially because that's exactly when Mars enters 19 degrees. And it'll come into this positive angle with Saturn, but also because the moon will be in Aquarius. So traditionally, you know, when the moon goes into Aquarius these last 2 years and it comes into conjunction with Saturn, it's kind of very somber, serious, you know, kind of like focused, kind of emotionally detached. But in this situation, we've got a ton of planets in Sagittarius that's going to be forming sextiles to Aquarius. So we're really finding the optimism, the expansion. We're feeling more wanderlust, more just positive about the future, and we're sharing and we're moving around a little bit more freely. That's all funneling positive energy into Aquarius, which is about the bigger picture, where we're going, our goals, and just the collective future in general. Now we know that Saturn is now direct. So something you'll hear me touch on several times throughout this video is like Saturn's in charge. Saturn is actually going to be relaying messages to Mars. But over the 27th and the 28th, as the moon comes into conjunction with Saturn, yes, we're still going to see some of the squares to the fixed nodes, right? And also Uranus, so we can't really escape that. But I think the moon in Saturn and its trine to Mars is going to give us an opportunity on the 27th and the 28th of November to really open up our communication skills and really problem solve, review something, and have the opportunity to kind of replan or redirect some of our energy. Now, Saturn in Aquarius, right? This has been like a 2-year thing. We're getting ready to say goodbye to Saturn in Aquarius in the spring of 2023. But this is having us really focus on the karma, right? Saturn is karma of the masses, groups, goals, politics, global agendas, friendships, and it's literally about the atmosphere, figuratively or literally, what's in the air. So now that Saturn's direct, and Saturn is only going to keep moving forward until it enters into Pisces spring of next year, Saturn's kind of like really going to start building up momentum, right? Right now with these sextiles, it kind of keeps things moving, but once we get into like Capricorn season and then the beginning of the year, we're gonna have a ton of planets hanging out in Capricorn and Saturn, and it's gonna be very Saturnian before all these planets come into conjunction with a late degree Saturn in February, and we're starting a new phase. It's almost gonna be like Saturn's kiss, like him saying goodbye and letting you know what he's gonna be leaving you. Likely stronger, more mature, you know, a little bit more better grounded when it comes to your relationships or your goals. Now, Mars in Gemini, it's like 7 months of this energy. Nothing has changed. I have nothing new to kind of let you know about this placement, other than the fact that it's coming into its second of what will be 3 trines. Now, the third one won't actually take place until Saturn is in Pisces and Mars will be in Cancer. We're going to have Mars that's going to kind of be in detriment. So this is an easier way to kind of work with Mars with this particular trine. Mars in Gemini, quick thinking, right? Fighting with words, passionate conversations, changing our daily routines. Some of us are moving, some of us are rethinking what we thought we knew, how we learn, what statements we've made, because Mars is retrograde. So it doesn't have the same kind of energy and vitality that it usually does. In some cases, I think the Mars retrograde in Gemini, especially in a trine to Saturn, usually Mars aspects are a little bit hard to harness. Like if we see the opposition, the square, the conjunction, it can almost blow out the energy and it can seem very aggro. But when Mars is in a trine, especially to Saturn, Saturn's got like a lasso on Mars and it's bringing Mars back going, remember what we agreed to, right? Remember what we planned on, remember what your goals are. So he's kind of telling Mars how to redirect his energy right now. So if all this sounds like Latin to you, pull out your natal chart. Take a look at where Gemini is in your chart. That's where you're reworking something. Now take a look at where Saturn in Aquarius is in your chart. That is directing the energy towards Mars and helping Mars better kind of strategize and figure out where he's going. Now this is going to be forming an air trine. It's not a grand air trine. That would mean we would have to have something in Libra. We saw some of that in Libra season, but still it's an air trine nevertheless. Which is mental, verbal. It's all about information, ideas. And because it's the element of air, it's harder to see, right? It's not like earth or water or fire. You have to work a little bit harder, which means some of us have to have the conversations. We have to actually make the phone call, set up the meeting. We have to analyze the information or the data. Like there is something that's a little bit more abstract when you're dealing with air trines, especially when you're dealing with Aquarius. So a lot of this is basically saying, our motives, our moves, our beliefs are really being navigated and kind of steered by collective groups or masses. So whether it's your friendship group, a network you belong to, a social platform, a union, even your political affiliation, that's all influencing how we communicate, how we move, and what we're thinking with Mars retrograde. So for the most part, it's positive. I mean, yeah, we're going to see some kind of wonky aspects. We're still in an extended square to Neptune, but that's fading finally after this last week. And Mars in general is about action and bravery, right? Movement, passion. But because it's retrograde, it doesn't quite have the same power that Mars would usually have. So Mars in Gemini is not very linear anyway. It's kind of like a butterfly. It just kind of flutters all over the place. But when Mars is in an air sign, it has a tendency to kind of like want to move around. So as it's retrograde, we're rethinking, restructuring, and reassessing our actions, our desires, what moves we're going to be taking in general. I speculated, if you guys saw my Mars, I was laughing like 2 days ago. I went back and looked at my, my Mars retrograde webinar that I put out for you guys. And of like the 6 people, already half of them have already made like mainstream kind of news. Trump got reinstated. Elon's been all over Twitter, you know, all this craziness with Kanye West, all of like the, you know, major significant Gemini placements. That's why I brought these people up. So the Mars retrograde over their natal placements is reinstating them, or it's reworking something relating to media. Great example, it's already kind of playing out in front of us. And with all retrogrades, there's a cycle of seeing the transits hit several times. So like a lot of this stuff's not even going to be worked out until March. So we have plenty of time. But when we're looking at Saturn, you know, Saturn is about timing and precision and maturity, goals, lessons, responsibility. So when we look at the archetypal combination of Mars, which is the warrior, the fighter, you know, kind of pedal to the metal, and Saturn, which is kind of routine and strict, and he's got a method and he wants you to do it a certain way, these two can work together to get things done. And with Saturn direct, like I said, Saturn is going to be kind of sending all of those directions to Mars and helping Mars kind of reorganize something in general. Now let's take a look back and let's see the last couple of aspects that we had that was leading up until this point. Now, in theory, there's going to be 3 full trines, but they will not all be in the element of air. So let me take you back here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The first of these trines we had were in September, and it was September 27th. Here we go. And at this point, Mars had been in shadow for a while, right? Mars entered shadow at like 8 degrees. But Mars was direct, so there was a lot more forward motion in the Gemini area of our life, even though we were starting to see the shadow kicking in, we're starting to see the squares to Neptune kicking in. So likely wherever Gemini was in your chart, you had a situation going where you were like full steam ahead and you were planning something, but Saturn was not direct. So basically it was like Mars was just, you know, kind of running away with everything, making plans, doing stuff all over the place. Saturn was not really in charge the way that it is now. Still, the trine was positive, and the trine is still at 19 degrees in both situations, both in September and now. So it has like a partnership kind of tinge to it. There's a sense of like learning about balance and fairness and responsibility in relationships to others. Gemini in general can be our neighbors, it can be our friends, it can be our siblings, our close family members. And Aquarius really deals with groups or networks. So that's why we've seen just such an emphasis on who we are wanting to be friends with on social platforms, or who's influencing what we're saying on social platforms, or whether or not we're kind of making changes or switching. That's why we've seen like superiors that have been kind of having a say in who cannot have platforms, who cannot speak freely on the internet, or who's just being monitored or kind of limited in terms of their freedom when it comes to speech. So as Mars goes retrograde, we're seeing all of these people coming back onto some of these platforms, right? But basically when this first trine happened, like I said, Mars was kind of running away with it, and Saturn hadn't really started kind of putting his touch of authority quite on it like he is now. So you might want to be reflecting back to what was going on 26th, 27th, 28th of September, just taking a look at what you were setting up, what you were working out, and where Aquarius and Gemini were working together in your natal chart. So now, obviously, we have this that will be perfecting over the 27th, 28th, 29th. The trine will really be in effect through the 30th. So, a little bit different now. Saturn's direct. The trine still at 19 degrees is still referencing where can we be more fair? Where can we be more balanced? Where are we learning to be a better friend, a better partner? Where are we learning to communicate what our needs are or what our goals are with other people? And now that Saturn is direct, trining a retrograde Mars, Mars is saying, okay, let me go back. Let me edit something. Let me review something. Let me review something that I said or what I thought. So you might notice that there is a lot of support right now from the Aquarius area of your chart. And also all of these sextiles happening to Saturn as well. You guys are going to find throughout this next week. I'll talk about this in my weeklies with all the mutable squares. Saturn is going to be the anchor in the midst of the next 2 weeks, because that's really the only positive aspect we're going to be seeing are going to be sextiles from planets in Sagittarius to Saturn. So air and fire fuel each other. So the action revolving around what we're expanding, what we're busy with in Sagittarius is helping funnel into some of our collective goals. Because all of these personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun, are going to start coming into oppositions with Mars. So it's going to be oppositional, confrontational, relational, right? And Gemini is like what we say, what we think, how we're moving around in our local communities. Sagittarius is the world at large, everyone else, the bigger picture. And we've got, Mercury that's in detriment. So there's going to be lots of tall tales that's going on. And then all of this energy is going to kind of funnel into a square with Jupiter and also Neptune. So it's like we're not going to have a lot of clarity. We're not really going to know what the next phase is. We just know that something is changing, something is ending because of all these mutable planets that are going to be in later degrees. So like I said, Saturn is the anchor. We want to work on focusing on what Saturn is trying to teach us right now. And it's especially important now that we're going to see Saturn in Aquarius in its final months. As Saturn begins to leave Aquarius, we're going to start to realize where something about what we've been working hard on and like maturing has kind of crystallized and finally come into full formation. And it's going to leave something solid, and it's going to leave like a legacy in a way. Saturn changes signs about every 2.5 years. Interesting that right when Saturn leaves, then we're going to have Pluto move into Aquarius as well. So several years. Saturn in Aquarius, we had Jupiter that was in Aquarius. Now we're going to be seeing Pluto going into Aquarius. We're going to realize that these Aquarius transits were so significant, and it was in preparation for Pluto showing up, totally changing the game. All right, so here's the final trine. And by the time this happens, like I said, it's going to be in a different element. So when we're looking at air trines, it's more information, relaying, communication, moving about a little bit. When we get to the final trine, which will be in March on the 28th, this will be trines happening between Mars, which will be in Cancer, and Saturn, which will be in Pisces. Very different energy. Look at all these larger outer planet shifts that will have happened by then, okay? So by this time, obviously, you know, we like to see Mars in Aries or Capricorn or in a fire sign or in Scorpio. Having Mars moving into Cancer, it's going to also put it into detriment. So it's kind of crabby, it's emotional, it's sensitive. Can we get a lot done on the home front? You know, are we more aware and taking action in regards to our emotions? Totally. Saturn in a trine with Mars is still a very positive aspect, especially now that we've got both Saturn and Mars direct. So I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but this to me seems more like emotional clearing, releasing, letting go, because we've got Saturn that's in a Neptune-based sign, and we've got Mars that's also kind of 4 signs away from Saturn, which does represent reflecting on something that we have released. So it's not going to have the same kind of energy that it has had during these 2 previous air trines. However, this is when it perfects. And what's interesting is that cardinal Mars is more about taking the initiative to protect something and secure something. Saturn in Pisces is more going to be about the conscious awareness act of taking space and reflecting and meditating and letting go, or, you know, willingly taking some kind of like separation or isolation. So very different energy. It's going to be more emotional, and I feel like it's going to be harder to get things done because we're going to have Mars that's going to be in detriment. So you want to make the most of what's going on with these transits currently. Now, I want to give you guys the Sabian symbol. I want to read you guys the Sabian symbol for both, actually. We're going to read Aquarius as well as Gemini. And usually I will read for you guys the next sign. But because Mars is retrograde and because also Saturn has been retrograde at this degree, I'm actually going to read 19. I looked at both. I mean, I feel like either one could apply. So if you have the Sabian symbols and you want to read 19 and 20, have at it. It definitely does apply, but I feel like 19 in both situations definitely makes a little bit more sense for me. All right, so Sabian symbol, 19 degrees of Gemini. You guys also should recognize this degree because this is the eclipse degree. We had a solar eclipse with a Mercury Cazimi last summer at this degree. So these eclipses, they are still strong. They're playing out very strongly. Gemini 19, the large volume. Keyword is background. The theme is history lessons. The symbol speaks to learning and to the knowledge gained through repetition and experience. The image of a large volume emphasizes the principle that experience can't be destroyed. Each time an experience is repeated, it gets easier. The symbol alludes to the ancient wisdom of the Akashic records and the insight that can be attained from examining the history or background of any situation. In the 1953 commentary of this image, it states, "A man archives best as he cultures a real sense of obligation of his own roots." And it suggests that an individual should be guided by what he learns from his own experiences before he relies on the advice of others. At its highest, the symbol represents a special talent for reestablishing itself in any situation of prior advantage with minimum effort, an exceptional skill in solving difficult problems. Watch for crystallization or ruining all opportunity for growth by living in the past and trying to preserve the status quo. The accent is on learning from experience and looking at things from a historical perspective. Your greatest advantage lies in paying attention to the background of a situation. An answer you're looking for may be found in a book or a library. Guard against ruining all chances for growth or progress by insisting that things stay as they are or as how they always have been. Older isn't necessarily better. Stepping stones would be knowledge, education, heritage, history, background, reference, experience, or guidance. History lessons, how appropriate with Mars retrograde, saying we're going to go back to what we've spoken about, what we said, what we agreed to, what we wrote down, what we learned. We're rethinking that. Trining Saturn, which is literally about timing. So what we're going to realize is that in some situations, the Mars retrograde trine Saturn is, do we go back to an old way of thinking? Do we return to something that we agreed to? Do we turn back the clock? Do we go back to, you know, an old regimen or routine? Or are we reflecting on, okay, this is what's happened in the past. We've done this in the past. It hasn't worked, even though it's always been like the way of doing things. Is it necessarily like the right way forward, right? So you might be realizing that like just because something has, you know, maybe been comfortable or it's been a routine, it may not necessarily be working or serving you. Saturn might fight that a little bit. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Okay, so this is just Mars going retrograde. This is the sign of Gemini. So let's look at Aquarius. All right, so Aquarius, 19 degrees, a forest fire quenched. The keyword is concern. The theme is rising to the occasion. The symbol speaks to the successful resolution of an emergency or crisis and the satisfaction in a job well done. The image of a forest fire quenched symbolizes the suppression or quelling of a dangerous destructive force. The emphasis in this degree is the opportunity in every group experience for discovering personal skills and abilities previously unrecognized, on turning every ordeal into a productive adventure in a social responsibility. On a practical level, the symbol alludes to diffusing explosive situations, calming your tempers, bringing potentially volatile situations under control. At its highest, the symbol represents the ability to function efficiently and effectively under pressure. Negatively, watch for lack of enthusiasm, a tendency to avoid getting involved in anything out of the ordinary or private enjoyment of the misfortune of others. The accent is getting things under control. An emergency situation could be resolved, much to everyone's relief. Okay, so this is Saturn at 19 degrees. So it's almost like with the trines to Mars, walking back certain conversations or certain agreements, trying to diffuse something so that way we're not having some kind of like a blow up situation, right? I mean, I feel like both of these are very fitting, but like I said, I read both 19 and 20, and you could really look at it honestly either way. Your greatest advantage lies in recognizing the skills and the ability that a crisis reveals and making the effort to refine them. Okay, so I'll read that again. Your greatest advantage lies in recognizing the skills and abilities that a crisis reveals and making the effort to refine them. So some blow-up situation could be happening in your life or in the world, but you're realizing that with reworking how you communicate, I almost see this as like somebody trying to diffuse, you know, something in like a bomb squad or something, right? Maybe a bad analogy, but literally, because Mars can be combative or something that can be explosive, and as it's like retrograde and it doesn't know which way it's going to turn, Saturn is basically saying to you, okay, you know, let's not let this situation get out of control. Let's think on our feet. This experience, this intensity that's going on right now is an opportunity to learn how to do things different, how to think differently, how to move differently, how to better handle our anger, our reactionary tendencies that we may have with words or ideas. Guard against being a coward or telling yourself that you're ill-equipped to deal completely with the problems of life. Don't make a habit of depending on others to get you out of situations that you've created. Stepping stones would be success, conquest, triumph, achievement, accomplishment, victory, resolution, relief, suppression. Very interesting. I know I've read these before because they sound familiar. I know I've read them a couple times, whether it was through an eclipse video or it was through some of the trines that have already taken place, but just food for thought. That's why I really like the Sabian Symbols, because I feel like it's really helpful in like making sense of what's going on in the world, quite literally. All right, so let's bring this back to the end of November when this trine is taking place. I want to give you guys some themes and some thoughts that I just kind of wrote down as I was kind of looking at the aspects. Probably one of the bigger themes is learning to handle things more carefully and, you know, having more precision, having more focus. I see like Mars as being like the blade that's being slowly sharpened by Saturn, or it's like the bow and arrow that you're pulling back and you're getting an idea of where you're going to actually shoot it. So if you apply timing and focus and you're diligent with whatever you're trying to kind of complete or work through right now, you're going to find that it's going to bring you more success. Another theme that I see with this aspect is meeting timelines. Okay, so Saturn is time. I think Mars going retrograde is rethinking how much time are we spending doing things? How can we make the most time? Are we spending too much time overthinking, over talking, not making decisions? Mars and Gemini can be kind of scattered, right? So I think that when it retrogrades, it gives us the opportunity to better direct our energy and think about where we are going and what we need to be focusing on, where we need to cut back and not spend so much time talking in circles, being on our phone, you know, not communicating well, and where Saturn is saying like, hey, you know, like we're kind of getting out of line, or we're potentially not going to stay on task. So this is a really great time for you to be looking at some of your goals, whether it's in the Gemini area of your chart, the house, or the Aquarius energy of your chart. Something about timing and goals is coming together. You know, when I put together these lectures and I kind of write these notes down and talk about what I'm going to talk to you guys about, 95% of the time, it's not just my analysis of the transits and how it's playing out in the world. A lot of my notes come from me being like, wow, this is how it's affecting me in my life, and this is what I'm noticing, and in the lives of my clients, because I'm talking to people all day. So I kind of put these things together, and probably for me, the biggest thing has been timelines. I've noticed this all year, especially when we had planets that were in the air signs in Aquarius, when planets were conjunct Saturn, when we got to Gemini season and we started to see that the trines were happening, and it was really creating a much more of an influx in my media and my meetings and the need to kind of talk things through and writing things and structuring stuff. Same thing with Libra season. I started to really kind of see the fruit of that kind of coming full circle and really developing more of like an audience, right? So, you know, I think if you're somebody who's struggling with timelines, staying on task, staying focused, if you are needing a little bit more of an extra kind of oomph, where you need to give yourself a pat on the back, take a look at what timelines you've been setting, right? Since the beginning of the year, what your goals have been. Have you been setting a goal to spend less time on an iPad? Have you been spending less time on social media? Has your goal been, you know, I'm going to run a mile under a certain period of time? Am I going to get my, you know, novel finished by this month? Take a look at what timelines you've been setting this year, and this is a great time to make tweaks and changes and find ways to be able to stay better focused and better on task, right? And if you want to set new timelines, now's a really good time to do it too, because there's a lot of really positive energy with these planets that are in Sagittarius, supporting Saturn, being like, look, what do we need to learn about making the time and kind of staying on task? Another big theme has been learning to ask others' opinions, right? Because Saturn in Aquarius is others, and Mars in Gemini is about information and communication, and it can be about getting feedback when it's retrograde. So learning to ask for help, you know, getting feedback from other people. Yes, sometimes there can be lots of constructive criticism that comes when you see aspects between Saturn and Mars, but it's not emotional, it's more intellectual, it's detached, and it's giving us the opportunity to go back in and make some tweaks and make some changes. We're lacking a lot of Virgo, obviously, right? We don't have a lot of strong mercurial energy right now with a debilitated Mercury. So I feel like taking this information and being able to kind of apply it, at least the positive silver lining of Mercury and Sag is like, hey, this isn't working so well, but I think it could be really good. So here's some advice. This is the kind of stuff that you're gonna be hearing over this next like week or two. Be more open to getting feedback, working with other people, working as a team. I think the trines to Aquarius make us realize that collectively we all have similar goals. We all would like to see things a little bit less Saturnian. We want to see that energy lighten up a little bit. We want to have more freedom, or we want to feel like we can be more positive or optimistic. And I think it's a matter of communicating and sharing that with other people, and realizing that a lot of people are kind of feeling the same way. And so the more that we're opening up for the conversation to kind of talk about needing more freedom, or needing the ability to move around a little bit more or get more done, we might find that there is a sense of like bonding with other people and being able to support other people and being better friends, being better partners in the process of having those conversations. Getting in the habit of vocalizing your goals. That's really big because, you know, Mars is in a mercurial sign. So Gemini is about texting, calling, emailing, you know, writing something down, posting something on social media. Journaling is like a big thing that can be really helpful right now for being able to like structure and get your goals going. Whether that's getting into the habit of journaling regularly and like writing down, you know, your manifestations, or you've got a mantra that you want to say every day in the mirror. Getting into the habit of vocalizing, and accountability is a big thing with Saturn. So when we look at a Mars retrograde, which is rethinking, you know, what we're going to be saying, like really thinking before we speak, or reflecting on something and then realizing that, okay, you know, there needs to be a sense of accountability. So when you tell somebody you're going to do something with Mars trine Saturn, a collective group is going to hold you accountable. So if you have that friend that's like helping you through sobriety and they're checking in with you being like, how are you doing? And you're like, okay, it's been a rough day, but you know, things are better. That's the Mars trine Saturn aspect, especially in an air trine. But it can also be friends that have your back, calling, you know, not just when you need something, but also learning to be a better friend and checking in on other people and being like, how are you doing? Rather than falling into the pattern of, you know, like the really kind of shallow chit chat. Oh, I'm really busy. Me too. And then you make plans and then you never follow up on those plans and then you don't talk for a month. Friendship is a two-way street, especially with Saturn and Aquarius. And so something that it's taught me is that even if you can't physically connect with your friends, that it's important to be sending that message once a week, or, you know, saying good morning, or making the phone call, having the FaceTime, making time to actually connect with other people rather than just aimlessly scrolling and occasionally sending memes and liking pictures. We can very quickly lose that element of the human connection with Saturn and Aquarius. And so I encourage a lot of you guys to, that friend that you haven't heard from for some time, or that person that, you know, you used to talk to all the time, don't just text them. Pick up the phone, call them, send them a FaceTime, send them a letter, right? Make plans to actively go and see them. This is about getting active and being able to connect with other people. And I think that that's so important. And also things changing, right? We can change our mind. That's what Saturn in Gemini, excuse me, Saturn in Aquarius and Mars in Gemini has taught me. Every single time Mars has made this aspect, even when Mars was in the shadow, I was like, I want to do this. No, I'm going to do that. I'm thinking about doing this. No, I'm going to do that. So I'm learning to be more open to the mutable energy of Gemini, realizing that things can change, right? And the retrograde, I think, is to better support our goals. So for me, the retrograde has been, you know, I'm a Libra rising. So it's been trining, you know, my North Node in the 5th. It's been going through my 9th house. So really, you would look at the transits and go, oh, it's actually quite easy. But it's not, because Mars has been forming a yod between my stellium in Scorpio and my stellium in Capricorn, all in my 9th house. And it's been about rethinking the bigger picture of, what do I want to put out there? What do I want to focus on putting out in my my marketplace? Because Mars rules my 7th. But really, it's been this slow and steady process of reworking how I'm going to be doing my media, or what I believe my purpose is, or what I'm going to be teaching when it comes to my astrology courses. And I have realized that it needed to come until this moment for me to start really organizing and getting my next astrology class ready. So I'm rolling with the punches. I've extended it a little bit. I pushed it out a little bit further than I wanted to, but it's also because I'm realizing that there's more that I want to add to it, right? So things are changing. I'm changing my mind. I hope that you guys are too, and you're realizing that it's okay to change your mind as long as there is some structure and support and stability behind it, and you're still sticking to timelines, right? Trine to Saturn. And it's going to better help support some of our goals. Some thoughts that I had, and also sounds like I'm rambling, but this might be really helpful for those of you guys who are like, how do I apply this to my life? You know, thinking like, since coming off the really rough Mars transit that we had this summer, at the end of July, beginning of August, when Mars came into Taurus, conjuncted Uranus in the North Node. So if you guys remember, that conjunction happened at 18 degrees. That energy is kind of like, it's like an eclipse, you know, when Saturn squares it, which it has been recently, we feel the intensity. When eclipses aspect that, when planets oppose that, that's why, you know, Scorpio season was quite rocky. It was one of the reasons. I feel like now that we have come out of that conjunction energy and we're coming back into the trine happens when it's releasing whatever has kind of shifted with that Mars North Node Uranus conjunction. So that was in Taurus. So it was very much about physical changes, money, energetic changes, body changes, food, resources. Now, Gemini is second house to that. So this is about us adapting and pivoting since some of those changes that happened. So like actually, this is meant to be a release of pressure and stress and adapting to whatever has recently kind of changed. Gemini also, shows another path. And it's not just about changing your mind. It can literally be a second way forward. So when I think of, Mars retrograde, some of us might be kind of thinking about the road less traveled in our life, right? Like taking the long way home or taking a direction forward that we don't quite know where we're going. It may be unfamiliar territory for us. But sometimes, Gemini talks about having a backup plan or the ability to pivot or see the other side of a story. It's changeable. So what I like about this is that as Mars is retrograding into trine to Saturn, some of us might be realizing like, oh, there's a second choice here. There's a second option, or there's like an easier way. There's a shortcut. Or I find myself saying, these phrases a lot recently. I didn't think of it that way. I didn't know that then, but I know it now. Now I realize this better. I can see more clearly. And if you find yourself saying that, it's a good sign that you're really working with the Mars-Saturn trine, because it's saying that there's something that's kind of unlocking and opening up in terms of your perspective and your beliefs, which Saturn is saying, yes, I want you to do that. I want you to think that way, because it's actually in some way going to help better unite everybody. And if we all start thinking differently, if we all start talking again, if we go back to watering the lawn and talking to our neighbors, if we go back to, meeting with people in a physical sense and kind of toning down the temper and the aggression a little bit, we can find that we have a lot more in common than we've been led to believe over these last few years, where there's just been so much division. Saturn is direct, Mars is retrograde. So Saturn is going to be superior, like I said, instructing Mars. And Saturn is going to keep reminding us now that he's direct that it's really important that you're holding your goals, you're holding your vibes high, okay? And so I'm not one of those people, I'm not one of those teachers or those astrologers or those people into metaphysics that's like, you got to raise your vibe. Your vibe is already naturally high, okay? It just is. It's a matter of maintaining that high and also letting go and decluttering of anything that is going to bring you down. So I think of Mars retrograde square Neptune like gossip, slander, anger, frustration that is not vocalized, that is internalized. And these are things that you guys want to be kind of aware of and thinking about. I've seen so many people with Mars retrograde who are telling me, I'm getting off social media, I'm having less screen time, I'm not smoking, I'm going for walks, I'm learning to journal when I'm frustrated, I'm finally expressing my frustrations. Even though this can be tricky for some of us to kind of work through, it's really important for us to be able to maintain these higher vibrations, so that way we can really work with the energy that Saturn wants to give us, because like I said, Saturn in Aquarius is the atmosphere that's around us. So vibes are very real. Mars is coming into opposition with Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius. So you're going to be seeing this right around the time that this transit is kind of setting up. So, seeing Mercury and Venus in Sag in opposition to Mars is seeing opportunities to rethink and rework what we are passionate about, right? Venus can be about what we love and what we're working towards, and goals that lead to more harmony and the bigger picture, Sagittarius. So I'm okay with the Mars-Venus opposition. I think it creates a little bit of like passion and, competitiveness, and it can bring like really great chemistry and a little bit of friction that can be good for, just for romance and things like that. But the Mercury-Mars opposition I'm not a fan of, because you've got a Mercury that's not comfortable and a Mars that's retrograde. Mars rules the South Node, so we're going to be seeing that everybody and their mother is going to have an opinion. And people aren't necessarily going to get along. But when I look at the oppositions, I'm more focused actually on the trine to Saturn, where it's about learning to hear one another. You don't have to agree. you don't have to agree. You don't have to believe in things that other people believe in. All this energy in Sag is what people believe, whether it's their, religious beliefs, their spiritual beliefs, their experiences, their culture. We're going to see like culture wars. And in order to pull ourselves out of what can be like this really intense, like negative vacuum, it's important to be working with the trine to Saturn, where it's like, okay, everybody's going to get their turn to speak. They can say what they want. We don't have to agree, but we do have to give people a platform to be able to speak and share their ideas, and learning to say, okay, cool, you do you, right? I mean, I feel like that was such a long time ago where we've lost the ability to allow people to do that. And it's become like this like cancel culture thing, or where people want to get really, really, really emotional and really intense, and everybody just has something to say. So I'm hoping that we can work more with the trine rather than with the opposition. Mars is still in an extended yet fading square to Neptune. So we're coming out of it. It's been here for really this last couple days, which has been rather uncomfortable, honestly. I mean, as I'm filming this, the South Node moon stuff has been happening, and the sun's in the late degrees of Scorpio, and it was literally what I thought it was going to be this last 24 hours, where everybody's just kind of like, deconstructing and breaking down. Moving forward, I think, it will be easier now that we're getting out of the squares to Neptune. But when I see mutable T-squares like this with Neptune, low energy, bad visibility, mutable T-squares between Neptune, Mars, and soon to be Mercury, Venus, is it all just talk, right? Could it be too good to be true? Where's the catch? There's definitely miscommunications, and there can be a sense of, because people don't want conflict, they just check out and they don't communicate, and then everything just kind of fades away. So we don't want to be doing that either. That Jupiter-Neptune is kind of the focal point of that T-square. So the way out of it is to be cool, calm, collected with Moon-Saturn, and be willing to communicate and talk and negotiate and let everybody kind of have a say. Who is this going to be affecting the most? So if you have any planets from 17 to 20 degrees of Aquarius, you're going to be feeling this, as well as Gemini. You're definitely going to be feeling this. It's very personal for you. So if this is on top of natal sun, moon, rising at these degrees, or personal planets, you're reworking something. A lot of this you've probably seen clear since September, and you're learning to communicate or share or focus more on your goals. Libra, you'll be feeling this as well, especially if you have placements around that 17 to 20 degrees, sun, moon, or rising. You will be benefiting from this because there's going to be trines, so it'll be easiest for you. And 17 to 20 degrees of the mutable signs, you're going to be feeling this as well, because you'll be experiencing a square. So outside of Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, you're going to feel this. Sag charts, Pisces charts, Virgo charts, all the mutable charts are like really lit up right now. If you have any planets between 18 to 20 degrees of the fixed signs, you're going to be feeling this as well, because you're still experiencing the Saturn square. But where Saturn is squaring any of your personal planets in fixed signs, it's trining Mars, right? So that's the way out. So really work with Mars. If you're a Saturn or a Mars-based chart too. So if you're an Aries or a Scorpio rising, you feel this very strongly. If you are a Capricorn or Aquarius rising, you're going to feel this as well. Now, I went back and I looked at my horoscopes, and surprisingly, this was, probably because I was planning on doing a video on this, this was not something that I did in the November horoscopes. So I want to take you guys through the 12 rising signs. I want to give you just like a little brief synopsis on like what's happening here, how to make the most of this energy, depending on your rising sign. As always, this is going to be Western astrology. So I'm a Western astrologer. I'm going to use the whole sign method for whole houses for each and every one of the 12 signs. To make the most of my predictions, I recommend using your ascendant first. So listen for your ascendant. It's going to tell you where this is happening in your life. Then you can listen to your sun and your moon. All of them are beneficial. All of them may apply in some way, but I feel like my rising recommendations are going to be the most accurate for you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and first get started with Aries and Aries rising. Hopefully you're doing well. All right, Aries. So for you, obviously this is kind of important, right? Because Mars rules your chart. So you've had Mars going retrograde in your third house. So a lot of my lecture, you're like, yes, because I'm talking about it generally from that 0 degrees Aries perspective. So Mars going retrograde in your third house, right? Mars rules your joint resources. Mars also rules your body. You're learning to perhaps not be so defensive when you communicate. You're learning to make some changes in how you express yourself. Changes with living situation, cars, that stuff can happen as well. But I think it's just changing the way that you communicate, changing your mind, okay? So Mars has been in a trine to Saturn, and Saturn rules your career and responsibility and also collective groups, goals, and friendships. I feel for Aries rising, this is about you learning to listen, learning to work as a team, focusing on group goals, and also the opportunities to be able to travel with other people, learn from other people, and share with other people. So this is a second round of you getting an opportunity to do that. As Mars is going retrograde, I encourage you to stay open, to not just be waiting to talk, to be actually actively listening. This is really important because I think other people are going to be giving feedback and other people are going to be talking to you about their goals and how to kind of better navigate working in a group setting. But it also can mean that you've got friends that need your support and they need your assistance and your guidance, and also your ability to kind of like give really good advice and lead them, okay? All right, so for Taurus and Taurus rising, hopefully you're doing well. We've got a retrograde Mars happening in your natal second house of money and resources. So Taurus, you're scaling back on spending, you're reevaluating your values in general. You're realizing that there needs to be a sense of really communicating what is most important to you. You know, you may have had some cutbacks in spending and your resources recently. Mars rules your natal 7th house of relationships and partnerships, and it also rules your 12th house. So to me, it seems like there can be some subconscious things that are going on in regards to relationships and like your self-esteem. You might be focusing on decluttering, getting rid of things, giving stuff away, things that other people have given you. Maybe it's also about working stuff out of your body energetically. So you might feel like other people are kind of like setting you off in a way, and it's affecting either your resources, your body, or your self-esteem. Mars has been in a trine to Saturn, and this is interesting because you've got the trines happening in the 2nd and the 10th house, which are usually like earth houses. So it's more communicating things that need to happen physically at work, within your financial realm, sharing information with people at work about what you value. Some of you guys are scaling back and making sacrifices financially to be able to kind of better build something in regards to your professional life. So there may be a sense of you being like, okay, I'm, taking time off to build my business rather than working full time, or I'm scaling back and working part-time so that way I can be working with a group and developing something new. Regardless, I think that because Saturn rules both your 9th house of belief and philosophy and your 10th house of career, it may mean that, you don't always feel appreciated by a team, or that you're not always appreciated by partners, or that you're not getting a chance to really show your true talents at work and you're making some sacrifices because of some kind of group goal. So you have to be really careful here, Taurus, with this retrograde, because it does make me feel like there can be a sense of you having some self-esteem issues because you're not feeling like you're totally being recognized for your talent or for what you're doing or what you're contributing. And I feel like there can be some relationship issues that are coming up as a result of that. And my advice to you is this: really reflect on your skills and your talents, and really how good of a job it is possible for you to do, and that recognition and fulfillment can come on a team level. It doesn't have to come on just a personal level, okay? Learning to regenerate your finances and your salary is a big thing here as well, and I feel like you can go a lot further with a team than you could have potentially gone on your own, and I want you to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. All right, good luck, Taurus. For Gemini and Gemini rising, obviously Mars is retrograde in your sign, so it's reevaluating your body, your drive, your ambitions, your direction. It can be affecting your mobility. It can be affecting your communication. But for the most part, because Mars rules your friendships and your goals and also your schedule and your health, some of you guys might be getting back to the gym. You might be reevaluating what your health goals are in general, focusing on healing. There may be a sense of you restructuring your schedule because you want to meet certain goals, or you're kind of trying to make more time to connect with some of your friendships in general. Now, Saturn is in your 9th house, and it is the ruler of both your 8th and your 9th house. So Saturn in the 9th is having you complete a program, learn to publish something, learning more about travel or culture. It can be working on higher levels of education, or perhaps dealing with like a legal situation. Saturn in the 9th house is, you know, it can be more challenging because it has like more of like a Jupiterian flair. So there may be a sense of you feeling more grounded in practical science and beliefs. And, you know, there's been some changes that have been happening with your belief system. Now you're applying that more to how you move around in the world, right? So something about structure, or a teacher or a guru, or something that you've been learning, or how your beliefs have changed, is now changing your goals, your direction, and your desire about life. And I think that you're becoming more in alignment with a new version of yourself. I think between the eclipses and also the retrograde here, you're still in your cocoon phase. It hasn't quite come out yet. But this can be really wonderful for like learning yoga, or a new religious or kind of spiritual routine that applies to your physical wellness, how you're dressing, how you carry your body, how you communicate with people. It can be really great for like meditation. And even those of you guys who are like wanting to go on like, you know, silent meditation retreats, I think with Mars retrograde, I could see that. Makes me laugh, makes me think of Kanye, how Kanye was like saying how he was gonna go on a verbal fast, and then he did it. Maybe that was the square to Neptune. As soon as he got back on Twitter, he had an opportunity to say something, and he did. But I think that this is you realizing sometimes that less can be more, right? And that, you know, minimalism, or saying less and listening more, or, you know, practicing kind of reflecting before you say anything, and having a structured routine to be able to do that can kind of better help you align with your goals and redirect your energy in general. Okay, good luck. For Cancer and Cancer rising, you have got Mars going retrograde, obviously, in your 12th house. Mars rules your career. It also rules your passion, your children, your love life, and your desire. Some of you guys are either in your head a little bit, retreating, you're going into hermit mode, or there is a sense of you working long hours behind the scenes, developing a skill, a talent, a hobby, getting ready to like launch something in preparation for possibly the new year, because Jupiter is coming back into your 10th. Now, Mars rules your 10th house of career, so this makes me feel like you're either reworking your vision or your beliefs about what your purpose is in this life. And Mars also rules your 5th house. So I feel like this is about figuring out what makes you the most passionate, and like really working on it behind the scenes, even into the night in some situations. Now with the trine happening to Saturn in Aquarius, you know, this is kind of a funky energy, right? Because you've got air trines happening in what is traditionally water houses. So the 4th, 8th, and 12th always deal with like endings and releasing and letting go and emotions and that kind of stuff. So in this case, it's like having to talk about what has ended and like how it's affected you financially, sexually, psychologically, or just in terms of learning to kind of cope with endings or loss of some kind. Many of you guys are either on the brink, or you've kind of been in the process of realizing that one phase of your professional life is ending and a new one is getting ready to begin. For some of you guys, it's also happening with relationships, because Saturn is the ruler of the 7th. So you're kind of sorting through some either financial or possibly even relationship karma, and you're kind of clearing that out and learning to communicate and express what has ended. So for this energy for you, Cancer, it's a lot about endings and clearings and things that are happening subconsciously while you're sleeping, in your dreams, emotionally, and very privately behind the scenes. I think this is really important because Saturn is getting ready to go into your 9th house next year, and then we're going to have Cancer come into your sign in the spring. And I think that you're going to be feeling like more capable and back in action closer to about February, March of 2023. And you're going to benefit from Saturn in Pisces and Mars in your sign. The water signs will really like that energy because you're going to feel like now you can move forward now that you've made the emotional changes necessary to be able to kind of really amplify and expand your life. Big changes are on the horizon for you in terms of your career. So I just want to keep reminding you, like, things are going to get better. But I think right now it's about learning not to reminisce and focus too much on the past, not getting stuck there, and learning to kind of cut ties with things energetically, spiritually, emotionally, that no longer serve you and might be kind of keeping you in a holding pattern of feeling like not good enough. Okay? Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. We have a Mars retrograde in your 11th. Mars rules your 9th house, which is about travel, philosophy, and education. Mars also rules your 4th house of home and family. For some of you guys, this is about getting ready to make moves. This is about, you know, making shifts from what you've always believed in. Mars is technically going retrograde in your 11th house, so it's making changes in the areas of your goals, making changes in the areas of your social groups, your friends, who you're spending time with, and, you know, whether or not you're getting along with some of the closest people in your life. For this energy for you, it's interesting because Mars is making a trine to Saturn in your 7th. And for the most part, Leo, Saturn has probably been kind of giving you a hard time all year long, right? He has purpose. There's a reason why he's doing this. As Saturn goes through an angular house, it's always very active, but the 7th house is opposite to you. So you've been learning a lot about the karma in relation to relationships and friendships. Who's in your corner, who's not, who you're meant to be with, who's meant to go. But finally, you've got some energy kind of working with you where I feel like Mars can give more passion and desire and the willingness to kind of communicate and express what your goals are when it comes to relationships. So this can be a sense of you sharing with some of your friends some of your relationship goals. This can be introducing friends to new partners. This can be reconnecting to old friends and like kind of working and reestablishing relationships. Can be quite positive for you. I think for the most part, especially because Saturn also doesn't just rule your 7th, it rules your 6th. It's about making time for people who are important or expressing the need to spend more time with them and making some changes in your schedule to better facilitate that. Those of you guys who are looking for opportunities to plan weddings and get-togethers and things like that, there can be a sense of like kind of connecting with friends and telling them about the good news because Mars rules ceremonies. If you're looking also to expand your social circles online, you might do that with educational, you know, institutions or groups. There may also be an opportunity to travel with friends or just telling friends about good news in regards to relationships. Like for the most part, from here on out, you are going to see kind of like a wrap up of some of these karmic lessons in January and February, but like things are actually going to get a little bit easier for you here now, Leo. But yeah, reconnecting with friends, with partners, being able to kind of share and, you know, let them know where you want to partner more so with them. Looks good for you. Good luck. For Virgo and Virgo rising, we have got Mars going retrograde in your 10th house of Gemini, forming a second trine with Saturn in Aquarius in your 6th house. How's your life going, my Virgo risings? A little crazy there with all this Sag energy. It kind of feels like everything is changing. Mars retrograde in the 10th, obviously reevaluating what your drives and your ambitions are when it comes to your professional life. Switching jobs, going back to a job, changing jobs, you know, going back to an area of work, all of that stuff can kind of apply. Mars rules your 3rd house of communication and travel and what you know. It also rules the 8th house of joint resources and money. So some of you guys are opting to do new training at work, or you're having to invest a little bit of time or energy and money to be able to do that. Maybe you're contractually renegotiating something, especially the money that you get paid. Now, Mars coming into a trine again with Saturn is actually quite interesting because once again, this is happening in houses that are traditionally associated with Earth. So, you know, Saturn in the 6th, you know, working out scheduling issues, health issues, coworker issues, you know, changing offices, changing jobs, or maybe that's taking a step back and dealing with health related things. And it might mean that now that health is getting stronger, you're like, okay, you know, I'm finally making plans to go back to work. I like this energy together because I feel like this is also saying that there's like new systems that have been implemented, new schedules, new software, other things that's going to kind of like streamline the work process and make it a lot easier for people to kind of connect so you can get more work done. So if you need an assistant, if you need, you know, new softwares or things like that, if you need to kind of get on a schedule, a digital schedule that people have access to, just to kind of streamline the process, it's really going to help you with being able to kind of get your work done in general. But reworking jobs, responsibilities, and schedules seems to be the main theme here. And I'll tell you that a little bit more complex for you because I know that this is squaring Neptune and Jupiter in your 7th, and it's coming into a bunch of oppositions with Sag in your 4th. So there's like a sense of like reworking work, big question marks with relationships. And then when we look down here with your home, you're kind of feeling like you're pulled between two directions. So when things get a little wonky in this next 2 weeks, it's important to kind of stick to a routine. Make sure you're eating well, sleeping well. If you still go to the gym, go to the gym. Like continue to keep making that time to prioritize your health and also your freedom when it comes to your daily routine. Don't make any sacrifices there. That's where you're going to kind of feel like you're falling off. Okay. Good luck, Virgo. For Libra and Libra rising, you have got Mars going retrograde in Gemini in your 9th house. Obviously, this is in a sister sign. So for Libra, Sun, Moon, and risings, this is not the most challenging energy for you. In fact, Libra, Sun, Moon, and risings, you're going to really benefit because you're going to experience grand air trines of some kind. So we've got Mars that's going retrograde in the 9th house. So you're rethinking the bigger purpose of life. You're rethinking travel, learning, courses, classes, thinking about returning back to somewhere that you have visited. It can be delays and extensions also with getting things published or delays with legal matters. Mars rules your relationships and it also rules money. So to me, it looks like there is like a sense of like really trying to get to the bigger picture with what is important to you, what you value, what are you going to do with your money, how much money could you potentially be making from advertising something, selling something, teaching something, and also like what other people want. This can be a really pivotal time also in relationships where there's lots of conversations about money and resources and your beliefs about money and resources, or your beliefs about what it is that you practice or like what you believe in, because the 9th house is like your higher mind. So lots of debates can be happening with other people about religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, and it can kind of get heated there with the squares to Neptune. Now, Mars is in a trine to Saturn, okay? And Saturn rules your home life and your family. It also rules your 5th house of children and creativity. So seeing Mars and Saturn trine, it gives you the opportunity to kind of better strategize and plan. Where are we going to be living? You know, how long are we going to live there? What kind of a life are we building? What are we creating? You know, how can we travel and make more time for fun? Saturn in the 5th, or for spending time with kids, or possibly even for vacations. Mars retrograde for Libra risings, though, you know, be careful because you're trying to travel in this next week or two. It's going to get a little bumpy because you're going to see so many oppositions and squares between your 3rd and your 6th house that you'll see delays and all kinds of other issues. So double and triple check anything that you're booking. But for the most part, for Libra and Libra rising, rethinking travel, creative campaigns, and also making some tweaks to your love life and realizing what life is supposed to be like. Good luck, Libra. We have got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Scorpio, this is important because Mars rules your chart. So we've got Mars going retrograde in the sign of Gemini. It is in your natal 8th house, which is about a change and a transformation of joint resources, of the mind, of intimacy, how you communicate with other people. When your chart ruler goes retrograde, obviously, you know, it is going to affect you and Aries more than most people. Now, Mars rules your first house of the body, but in most cases, this is your actions, how you react to things. Mars in Gemini is how you communicate. The 8th house is other people. So as Mars goes retrograde, you're going to realize that you're having an effect on others more strongly. A lot of it is based off of how you behave or how you communicate. Now, Mars also is the ruler of your 6th house of routine. So to me, it seems like you can kind of be getting triggered because there's changes to your routine and it's having an effect on you. And it's also possibly having an effect on your joint resources or something in regards to your intimacy with other people. You have Mars that's in a trine to Saturn. So Saturn is in the 4th house of home and family and property. And Saturn rules your 4th house as well as your 3rd. So to me, it seems like, especially Scorpio rising, who like work from home, there seems to be like a need to totally rework how you think home life can be, what routines are within the home, how you communicate with roommates, family members. A little bit more challenging for you, Scorpio, because you've got air trines happening in water houses. So there is a sense of feeling emotions more, needing to talk about how you're feeling, needing to express yourself emotionally more. Mars retrograde in the 8th can also be like a slowing down of joint resources or not as much money coming in, or like a partner is going through a period of not working or working less. But the trines to Saturn is like learning how to kind of communicate and talk to family members or people in your home life about what changes are going on with them and their values, and how you guys can be able to better kind of strategize and make a little bit more peace when it comes to the daily routines within the home. There can also be renegotiations. So, you know, a lot of Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising, Scorpio rising and suns especially, I've seen are like trying to move, trying to buy a house, trying to sell a house, you know, trying to deal with an inheritance, taking care of a parent, you know, dealing with like a will or an estate issue. As Mars comes into a trine with Saturn, some of you guys might find out that there's contracts or documents that need to be renegotiated or signed that pertain to property or home. If you have been trying to sell something and there's been delays, the Mars trine Saturn can bring something back, but likely it's going to be a renegotiation. And you're going to see lots of planets that are going to go through your 2nd house. So you're going to see an opportunity to make money, but somebody's going to either come back and say, okay, I want to make a deal, or they're going to change direction or change their mind when it comes to home situations. So Scorpio, you're still kind of like a little bit in a situation where you're bound by a living situation. That may change as we get closer to the new year. But be open to communicating with other people. Be open to also talking more about your emotions and kind of getting that cleared out, because that seems to be really important. All right, good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. Mars going retrograde in Gemini in your 7th, totally changing up the way you communicate with your partnerships, totally changing up the way that you work with other people. You can feel like there can be a lot of excitement in relationships. You could be going back and forth between a few different people. Somebody from the past can come back, all that fun stuff. Mars rules your 5th house of romance and pleasure and creative projects, self-employment. And Mars also rules your 12th house of what is hidden and unseen. So what it seems to me like is like a lot of airing things out with other people, telling other people how you feel, or other people being a little bit more aggressive and combative with you. The 12th house is hidden enemies. So you might be seeing that either other people are airing out their grievances, or, you know, clients are a little bit more aggressive. Relationships with others can be a little bit more intense. Mars is in a trine with Saturn. So Saturn is the ruler of your 2nd house of money and your 3rd house of communication. I get the impression that if you're self-employed or if you're a creative person, you might have a little bit of combativeness with other people about what you're charging for your services. People might come back and you're like, my prices have raised, and people are going to be like, what? There can also just be some weirdness with like clients, and also like, you know, the marketplace in general, especially if you work locally or if you have an online business. If you work with siblings, that can be something else that can get a little dicey right now as well. Learning how to communicate better with siblings or neighbors or close friends can be a theme with the trine from Mars to Saturn. You know, for you, I think that all conflict can be resolved by being cool, calm, and collected with how you communicate with other people, right? Like Saturn is teaching you to stand up and kind of really speak your truth and talk about your values, but it's also saying like when other people get kind of crazy, not allowing yourself to get super overwhelmed and not saying things that you're going to regret. There can also be a sense of just like, you know, feeling a little bit more challenged when it comes to speaking up and saying what you have to say. So in many ways, this Mars retrograde, things that are going on in your relationships or in your close partnerships can be prompting you to finally speak up and say something. And a lot of it may be in regards to finances, money, resources. It can be also about your self-esteem and kind of finally saying things that have been meaning to come out for some time. And it's a part of the process of airing things out with other people. I think it's teaching you that you can work through issues, basically. Not easy for you, Sag. I know that there's a ton of planets going through your first house. It's all coming into squares with Jupiter and Neptune here, and it's opposing Mars. And I feel like this can have you in a way feeling like it's you against somebody else, and then starting to question whether or not you feel emotionally safe, secure, or comfortable within your own home. My advice is to try to remain open. You're going to be very much in Sag season with all these planets in your sign, but the oppositions to Mars make me feel like other people can be so combative that it can set you off. So try to remain open and communicate with other people and find ways to, you know, communicate in different ways, writing letters, you know, not sending text messages that can be aggressive. Having a conversation face-to-face is a better way to kind of handle this. Good luck. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you have got Mars going retrograde in your natal 6th house in Gemini. So reworking schedule, health, routines, changing offices, changing jobs. Mars rules your 4th house of home and family and your 11th house of goals. So a lot of you guys are dealing with family members that are moving. You need to help them. You're moving. You need to reorganize stuff. You're dealing with health problems that might be connected to your emotional health. Something like that is kind of going on. This can also be you kind of getting in alignment with what your home goals are, or perhaps what your health goals are. And it might be with the assistance or the help of friends. Hey, I'll come over and help you move. I'll help you organize and unpack. I'll help you look for a home. You know, you can come stay with me in the meantime. You might hear stuff like that. Mars is in a trine with Saturn, and this is important because Saturn rules your chart. So when you have Mars going to the 6th house, it's an extended period of having more time to really flush out the 6th house. So you have plenty of time. You have between now and March to get the home organization under control, to get back to the gym, to really make the changes and the tweaks that you want to in your health routine to start seeing the results that you want. This can be literally about diet, because Saturn in your 2nd house is like cutting back on what you're eating, cutting back on what you're spending, to be able to kind of better afford maybe making some changes with your home or making some improvements with your home. But I think that this is either going to be about cutting back resources to make changes within home, or cutting back food to make changes within your health and your routine. Mars retrograde makes me feel like it's going to take longer for you to see the results, but round about, you know, March, April of 2023, whether it's with your home or with your body, you're going to start to see these results. Because Saturn rules your 1st house as well, that's why I think it has to do with like what action you're taking. So, you know, take it slow if you're working out, if you're lifting weights, if you're doing that stuff. Take it slow if you're wanting to organize and if you're wanting to rework or remodel something within your home or even your office. Some of you guys might be going back to work, or you might be juggling 2 jobs, and you're doing this because you want to make more money with the trines to Saturn. And I think just your goals of feeling like you can kind of have a more consistent schedule are really important, making it easier and possible for you to feel stable and secure and like you're consistently bringing money in. So changes in diets, how you manage money, also learning to ask for help. I think Mars being in the 6th house is, if you're overwhelmed, like asking either, you know, health professionals, or it could be mental health professionals because it's Gemini, or asking family to help, so that way you can kind of better navigate making some of these changes with your health or your schedule, okay? Good luck, Capricorn. I hope it goes well. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you have got Mars going retrograde in your 5th house. Extended playtime is kind of the vibe that I'm getting looking at this. You know, Mars retrograde in the 5th, it is having you think about how do you have fun, you know, where do you slow down when it comes to taking chances. Maybe you're scaling back with a creative project. Maybe you're going back to an old hobby. Maybe you're focusing more on your children. Now, Mars rules your 3rd house of communication and ideas. It also rules your 10th house. So if you're somebody who owns your own business, especially if you work locally or you have like a website or a digital business, you might be rethinking, how do I want to present myself to the world? How can I be more creative with what I'm sharing with other people? What new skills or hobbies can I integrate into my business? And you might be pivoting and going back and forth. Now, Mars here also can represent somebody romantically returning to you, kind of calling you, reaching out to you from the past. It can also represent just your mind kind of shifting gears when it comes to children and rethinking or re-strategizing, balancing children and also a professional life, and like where there's a need to take more action in the 5th house, and you're kind of breaking away from what you've been doing for a living. A lot of Aquarius risings are going to find that with Uranus and Jupiter going through your 4th over these next couple of years, there's so much more focus with home. So you're getting a little bit better kind of based. And if it's not about having kids, it's hobbies and things that are going to bring you closer to home, like gardening and trying to start your own business, or working in property, or like a family business of some kind. Now, Mars in a trine to Saturn in your sign, really great. I think Saturn in your 1st house is got a new and improved, more serious, reserved, mature version of you. That trine to Mars is basically saying, I can have fun in a way that is responsible. I can have fun in other ways other than just partying. And if you're still partying, drinking, going out, going to bars and stuff, you might find that the retrograde is about you being like, okay, I need to kind of buckle down and get more serious about my health goals, about my mental health goals. But it also might be through structure and routine, you're able to bring a creative project fully forward, and you're getting ready to possibly launch something, which might be closer to about March of next year. Having Saturn go into your 2nd house also in this next year, coming into a trine with your midheaven, is really great. Like, it's all about how you're feeling emotionally about your talents and like the willingness to get the job done. So right now you're in the strategizing period from Saturn trine Mars. Saturn also is the ruler of your 12th house. So it's about taking your limiting self habits and becoming aware of them, and where you have a tendency to either like not be so grounded or so committed. And right now, maybe you're just more in the focus of figuring out what makes you happy and getting out of these patterns where you're self-sabotaging, so you can be more consistent with creating something and doing it in a much more mature and improved way. Finding what makes you happy, getting mature, making your own happiness. Like, this is really big for Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising, especially the Rising. Nobody is responsible for your own happiness but you. So when you take the steps necessary to be able to figure out what makes you happy and be a little curious and willing to try a couple different things, you might find that something really emerges that you're really good at. Okay? Good luck, Aquarius. And for my Pisces and Pisces rising, you have got Mars going retrograde in Gemini, and this is in your 4th house. I know it's a little bumpy right now. A lot of this is because of the squares happening to Jupiter and Neptune in your sign, and you're just going to get bombarded with all of this Sag in your 10th house, so it's going to be very work-oriented. But as Mars goes retrograde in your 4th, you're rethinking your home life, maybe, strategizing a move, reconnecting with family, reevaluating what moves you need to make to save money to be able to kind of get in a stronger financial situation when it comes to your home life. Mars is in a trine to Saturn, okay? So Mars rules money, resources, self-esteem, the bigger picture, travel, and learning. And Saturn rules your goals and behind-the-scenes things, stuff that's kind of hidden and subconscious. So we've got air trines happening between Mars in your 4th house and Saturn in the 12th, and it's happening in the houses that are associated with water. So it's about making sense and communicating change and letting something go and having some kind of loss of some kind. Because Saturn rules your 11th and your 12th house, some Pisces and Pisces risings can be feeling like they're going through a difficult time with their home life, or they're going through changes with their family, and they're kind of reflecting on some friends they wish they can connect to, or they wish they can kind of talk to. It might be friendships that have ended. It might be people who are in other places, or just people that they've kind of lost connections with. I feel like this trine can be, sudden changes that are happening in the home front that's really kind of bringing out this much more private, like not knowing how to deal, wanting to kind of be a little bit more reclusive type of energy. In some situations, it is going to be about saying goodbye, but it doesn't have to be to a person. It could be to a home. It could be to a place. It can be to an old like lifestyle habit. And I think that you're so committed to your goals with Saturn being in your 12th house, and the fact that you know that massive changes are going to be coming for you, you know, March, April, May of 2023, because Saturn is coming into your sign. When Saturn is direct and it's getting ready to enter to your ascendant sign, it's almost like you have to prepare and get everything ready before that happens, because there is going to be a sense of you really coming into a new version of yourself. Saturn cross your ascendant is a once in a 28-year period. So you're going to be seen as a leader of a group, or maybe you're getting serious about going back to school. Maybe you're getting serious about a religious practice or study. Maybe you're relocating to another country. Whatever it is, there's something that's emerging that's going to be really stable for you. And I think you're realizing right now that in order for you to achieve your goals, you have to let the past be in the past and make better decisions about what you hold on to and bring with you and what you actually release and let go. Yes, Sag season is going to have you focusing a lot on your career, and perhaps career advancement might actually pull you out of the home and more align with your vision. Try to work with this energy the best that you can. I would say whether it's moving or kind of detaching from people or situations or places, it is positive because you can't take everything with you when Saturn goes into your sign next year, okay? So be open to that. All right, guys. I hope you guys have everything that you need. Really make the most of this transit. Like I said, you're going to be feeling it from about November the 27th through the 30th. You can start planning for this early. So even over these next couple days, start looking at where Gemini and also Aquarius is in your chart, where these two are working together to be able to better communicate and help you flex your communication muscles to make all of your Saturn and Aquarius dreams come true. How are you feeling with this energy? Is it benefiting you? How is it playing out in your life? And are you seeing similar patterns from September? Leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation today. We're coming back on Thursday. We have horoscopes that are going to be taking place for December. It's crazy. I can't believe it. Also, just letting you guys know that we are going to be having a Black Friday sale. So pretty much Thursday through Monday, all of my courses on my website are going to be on sale. All of my old webinars, my calendar, and we have Astro 201 signups available for my January 2023 second level astrology course. So if you want to learn astrology with me live in my digital classroom, it's going to be 8 weeks of demonstration. We're going to be doing it on Sunday mornings, live through Zoom, and it's all going to be recorded with group learning and exercises and homework and all that stuff. Level 2 certification at the end if you pass the test. Click on my links below, go to my website. You can sign up for my newsletter. It is going to be the most affordable. It's going to be all year long. So if you want to get in on that and take my class in January, you definitely want to be a part of my newsletter, and you want to be signing up for that when it goes live tomorrow. So actually Wednesday we're going to start selling it, but it's going to be on sale all weekend long. You want to book a session with me and chat with me about your chart? I'd be happy to talk to you. You can click on my website, go to book a reading. I'm booking in February and March of 2023. So if you know you have a birthday coming up or you want a New Year reading, make sure you get on my schedule. Otherwise, we do live readings on the channel every Saturday. We alternate between tarot and astrology, so you can get a tarot or an astrology reading. We'll be back doing that this next Saturday. It's going to be tarot. Okay, so that's it for today. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.